Let's talk straight talk. I can hear you talking.
Straight talk.
Did I hear you say? Did I hear you say straight talk? Did I hear you say? Did I hear you say
Straight talk.
talking straight? Did I hear you say
Straight talk.
with Edna?
Straight talk.
We're talking straight. Let's talk straight talk. I can hear you talking.
Straight talk.
Talking straight. Did I hear you say
Straight talk.
with Edna?
Straight talk.
We're talking straight. I can hear you talking.
Straight talk.
Talking straight. Did I hear you say straight talk with Edna?
Straight talk.
I can hear you talking.
Straight talk.
Let's talk. Let's talk. Good morning and welcome to another edition of Straight Talk Live. I'm your host, Edna Howe Parrish. Let's talk. And that's what we're going to do today. Just a blessing to all of you to come and join us this morning. I'm so glad you're here with me today. So glad. Every Sunday is always a different Sunday. Every Sunday is a new Sunday. Thank you, Lord, for this Sunday. And when the Lord says it's ready, it's time, it is time. And the time is now for us to be here on Straight Talk Live. Uh, Thank you all for just joining us this morning, just checking in on Facebook. We appreciate that. Good morning to Jerome Anderson. Hello. Always depend on you being here. If you like the show, be sure to like and to share the show each and every Sunday. Brenda Early is joining us this morning. Good morning, Brenda. Casey Brown. Thank you, Casey S. Brown. Grand Risings, everyone. Gladysville, good morning. Beautiful Sunday morning, everyone. Good morning, Edna. It's our friend Holly Jenkins. Good morning, Holly. Nakia Lovett is joining us. I literally opened up my Facebook just a moment ago and I saw where our dear friend Sharon Mills Draper had posted on her Facebook page a message that concerned me. She said, "Oh no, not my oldest, my son. I don't know what I'm going to do without him." And then beneath that, I saw people giving condolences. So if that message is what it appears to be, perhaps she lost her oldest son and she says she doesn't know what she's going to do without him. Mm. The pain a mother must feel when she loses a child, whether it be her son or her daughter. Our heart goes out to you and for those that have lost loved ones. Hello, Joyce. Good morning, Joyce Keith. Charity Monique Green checking in this morning. Rise and Shine Facebook. We thank you all for being here with us. Our show today is one of a message of love, one of hope. The worst parent of pain could ever feel to have a son or daughter return safe from war. In fact, the Iraqi war. Our particular mother this morning, Rukiye Abdul-Mutakallim, is our guest this morning. A pain that she felt when her son returned home, but he was safe And she felt happy and relieved, I'm sure. Some time went on and he married and had a wife so and working. And so one night he went out to get food for he and his wife, and he never returned home to his wife. Shot in the back of his neck by teenagers who robbed him of not only his food, but his money and left him in the street to die. Can you imagine a son going through the pain of being in Iraq and he came home safe, but he on his own street, he was killed by teenagers. Our topic this morning is the pain, but the love and the hope, a legacy of Rukiye Abdul-Mutakallim. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you, Rukiye, for joining us.
It is an honor and a pleasure to actually be in somewhat the same room with someone of your character and forthrightness. I'm truly honored that you find me worthy to be on your show.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful to see you. Grand rising to you for being here this morning with us. I talked about the pain, the hurt that you must have felt that night when you got the call from the hospital that your son was there. Could you get there fast enough?
No, you can't get there fast enough. And actually, you don't even get to go to the hospital first. At least I didn't. We just received a call that he was shot. And we went to the scene, and seeing all those flashing lights, my heart was just beating as if it was coming out of my chest, but I had to remain calm. We didn't see the body. We went to the detectives. They told us that he is at UC. There were questions, but I didn't listen to those questions. I just said, it's time for us to go to my son. The fact that he didn't, there was a favor to me from the Creator that he did not die in that gutter. He wasn't born in a gutter, and I certainly did not want him to die in a gutter. And I'm not saying other children are born in a gutter. I'm just saying that mothers, where we have our children, we certainly don't want them in an area or dying in an area where they're in dirt and filth. No one. I wouldn't want to be born in a gutter. So I hurried, my family, my daughter and I, and my son-in-law, we hurried to the hospital. I wasn't going to answer any questions. I didn't want to answer any questions until I saw my son. When we got to the hospital, he was still alive. It was as if he was waiting for us, waiting for me. His rags around his head was soaked in blood. And I kissed those rags. I held his hand. I talked to him. He didn't look like my son because his face was so swollen, but I knew he was alive. And I got to say goodbye. He even got to talk to, or at least hear, his brother's voice, because we called his brother. He was at the Pentagon. This was the time in which Obama's team was still there running things. And my son was doing the oldest son was doing the last bit of pickup of stuff at the Pentagon. So when we called him, he got to hear, my oldest son got to tell his brother. So his brother got to hear his voice. And his sister was there, and she held his hand and told him so many things. Yes, him. He's still with us. And I got to say goodbye to him. I had to hold his hand and tell him about his birth one more time, because every time the birthday comes, I tell all my children about their birth, everything about their birth. And I told him about his birth and how honored I was that I got chosen to be his mother, because none of us get to choose any anything about ourselves or the fact or the children that we birth if we are granted children. And the child doesn't get to choose you. And I told him how honored I was to have him as my son, that I would be his mother, and that he will always be my son, no matter where he goes. And that I will always have this connection to him. So I found that to be absolutely a favor from the Creator, because how many people get to say goodbye to their loved ones? How many? Not many at all. No, not at all. And here I was granted this favor because he was shot in the back of his head. Some of his brains were on the ground. We got to see the blood, and that's my blood on that ground, in that gutter. It hurts. It will always hurt. I will always remember. It is traumatizing. You will always remember. But what helps you rise above it is knowing that you were granted a favor to say goodbye. That's one. Two, you get to understand, even if you didn't get to do everything right for the child that you were granted, you gave it your best. You then analyze everything. Did you give your best? Once you understand that you have, then that forgiveness of yourself first starts, and that's how the healing starts. I can't hear you.
Talking about her son and the night that he was murdered in 2015, that June night, were police able to do some investigations that night and find out who shot him? Were people arrested, or how long did it take them to discover what happened?
Nothing was done that night other than collecting evidence. So the time frame of when they caught the two of the three assailants was about 3 months. And we were contacted to let us know that they have two suspects. Within 6 months, we were first seeing the two youngest, the 14-year-old and 16-year-old, in juvenile court. And that was the shocker for me. I was totally shocked. They were children. They had baby faces. The 14-year-old, he looked like a child lost, didn't even understand how he got to where he is, and wishing he could turn back the clock. The 16-year-old, child face, but hardened, like he had been through so much already at 16. And when I got a chance to look at their history, I lifted up the curtain and looked underneath, because the first thing I said, and even to my daughter, what happened to these children? What happened to them? Children are not born with guns in their hands. They're not born lying, stealing, cheating. They're not born hating. These are learned behaviors, bad learned behaviors. So what happened to them? Not what happened to me, not what happened to my son. Why me? What happened to those children? Children are born with light in their eyes, joy in their voice, hope in their hearts, a curious mind, and they're always reaching up. Those are the 5 things that all children, no matter what, whether they're challenged with disabilities or not, or they are geniuses, they all have 5 things given to them that we didn't put in them. That's put into them by the Creator. And what happened to them? What smothered them? And as I began to get those answers, which took a bit, because nobody wanted to admit, they learned this. This was learned behavior, bad behavior, and nourished so that it grew. I found out that the 14-year-old, the one I forgave them both, but he's the one I hugged in court. And he turned to me on his own and asked me to forgive him. But I'd already said to him, If you will accept my forgiveness, I will help you as best I can and your family. And I meant that, and I still mean it, and I still work with his family. But he was already challenged for learning. He's 16, standing as tall as my son, who is no longer physically with me. And he has a learning grade, a level of a third grader. A third grade at 16? Even at 14, he was at third grade reading level. What happened to them? And he had no record. He had no police record whatsoever. What happened to them? That was the question, and it's still, I'm getting answers. I got many answers, but the problem is that we as a society have not been addressing what's happening to our children, which are our future.
She brings her legacy of love, her legacy of forgiveness, a legacy of hope for the future. And with your son having been buried some time ago, 5 years ago, I know it seems like yesterday perhaps, you still are out there advocating for other mothers' children to lead a good life. Let's say good morning to Jane Huff. Good morning, Jane. Cleopatra Jones. When you get that call, you can't get there fast enough. She said it's like going to slow motion. That's been her experience. What has your experience been as you listen this morning? Is bringing her message today. Holly says the sister is speaking from a place of strength and resolve. Maxine Wells says, my condolences to everyone who has experienced this. When I was 15, someone killed my best friend who was 16, and I still think about it. Cleopatra says, true, what made these children want to learn this behavior? Deborah Nesbitt checking in this morning saying, what empathy and compassion you have, Rukiye. And Deborah says, good morning to everyone with lots of love in her heart. And so, Rukiye, instead of you being bitter, sad, forlorn, you bring a legacy of love and hope for the future. You're advocating for these children that are still out there. And so, what makes a 14-year-old, 15-year-old want to shoot someone and kill? And what message do you have for parents today about this happening?
First of all, they didn't want to learn this behavior. It was forced upon them by their environment. Whatever or whomever is surrounding them, that environment, that neighborhood, that family, schools, all of these things influence the child. Remember, they come out knowing nothing. And they're already looking at you with this light in their eyes, joy, and maybe something's hurting them, but they don't know how to tell you that. So you need to sit still and learn, hear them, know them. If you have decided that they're too much of a trouble interfering with you, then you start demonizing in your mind your child. People demonize their own children for whatever reason. I'm not trying to tell you why you're doing it. I'm just saying that it is being done to the children because they don't come out with that hate or that desire. But as you are using whatever methods you're using for whatever your reasons, you've neglected to understand your own child. So no, children don't come wanting to learn this, but it's out of self-defense. And maybe to get someone's attention. Sometimes children become spoiled because they want the attention of someone. So in other words, they'll do some terrible things so that you'll at least pay attention to them. And if that's what you do when they do something terrible and you finally pay attention to them, well, you're teaching them that bad behavior is rewarded. Good behavior is not. To continue answering that question, is the children who are crying out to us right now in their behaviors and hurting themselves and or others, they need help. Please help me. But the only way they are able to express it is from how their environment has taught them bad behavior is rewarded. We ignore them when they're doing good. We don't sit down and play with them or read a book with them, to them. They spend more time, you get them those little gadgets to sit in front of the TV, and they're happy, but they want your attention. Where are you? Where did you go? Are you reading a book? Are you looking at something else on the TV in another room? Because now they're happy and sitting with. Children desire and need personal touch. So then if the person out in the neighborhood, the drug dealer, the pedophile gives them attention, where do you think they're going to go? Our children come out, every last one of them, come out needing your personal attention to them and giving them a balance of love and discipline that gives them structure to stand on. You cannot and must not ignore that. The sacrifices that you make for their lives teaches them how to reach for the universe so they can catch a star. We are the ones doing this to them. Now, yes, children are raising other children. Our grandparents they don't have the patience anymore. So well, now what are you going to do? But if you haven't given up things that are distracting you from your children, and I'm not telling people how they should live their lives, I'm actually asking you to look at your life. And is what you're doing or are what you're doing? No, it's what you're doing. Is it distracting you from your children? Then you need to ask. Should I be doing these drugs? Should I be drinking alcohol? Should I be out in the clubs on the weekend or spending time with my children? If you didn't want that responsibility, why are you having these children? Why?
Did you make? We have a 14-year-old in prison, jail, youth prison, juvenile detention, 14 years in jail, 20-year-old in jail, and then the other person who was part of the crime with your son, just one case, he didn't get arrested or charged. But
No.
instead of feeling bad about that, you have gone out there, you have gotten busy, you have been speaking, you have been organizing and bringing people together, starting caravans around the community about violence, about suicide. Let's talk about several of those projects that you have going to try to help other youth as you live in your inconvenience of forgiveness.
The Musketeer Association, I'm the founder and CEO of it. After I tried very hard to approach many of the other organizations, first of all, to see what they're doing. And I had already been able to diagnose that we have a disease. It's called trauma. Now, I'm not even going to speak on 500 years of trauma that has traveled with our people from a time that was wrongfully done. I want people to address at least 60 years because you can fathom 60 years. So when I found out the real enemy is trauma, I wanted to know what are these other organizations doing and how can I help? How can I help save these children out here? Because they don't want to do this, but they've given up hope. I couldn't find any. I can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm saying that do the people want to help you? These other parents in the community, are they joining the caravan? Are they trying to help out?
People slowly but surely volunteering. Many of our volunteers are workers, though. They're people who are working and trying to keep their families going, and they do what they can when they can. Most are challenged for funding. I have not in any way been out here asking people to give, though we need it. I've asked them first and foremost, if you're going to help, you want to help, give your heart. If you give your heart, then I know you'll do whatever you can with the skill sets that you have to help us do these different projects. We've got projects of the Flower Pot Project, I was going to show you. This is the first one that we developed. And that QR code that you see here, the QR code, wait a minute. Oh, sorry. There, QR code. That QR code there is owned and developed by us. And it will revolutionize how we get information into our communities and beautify our communities. Give the children hope and the families that someone is there that they can just click and get in touch with. They'll learn the story about the person who's fallen in these streets, and we call them the fallen. They are fallen in these streets from this disease. I no longer want them to be demonized as they have been demonized. These are children. I don't care if they're sitting at 25 years old and they're as tall as 6 feet or 7 feet. In their minds and what has happened to them, if you know about trauma, it retards the growth. It actually holds it back, both mentally and spiritually, for them to be able to grow into productive human beings. And we know this. I know this because I did the studies, and they've had it for at least 30 years knowing this. Yet they have never addressed the issue in its proper manner. They've never introduced projects that are antibiotic and probiotic in nature. So I got tired of fighting with the others, trying to reason with them. And I started the Musketeer Association. I took all my retirement and I opened up the Musketeer Association and asked people, come with your skills. We're not going to sit around and do kumbaya. We're not going to sit around and talk about what's wrong. You know what's wrong. You have projects. Are these projects perpetual? Are they with antibiotic and probiotic in nature? Means that they're giving a real, when you do antibiotics of any type, it takes days and you have to take them at the same time almost for the length of time when you have an infection in order to truly kill the infection. If you miss a day, that infection will mutate. Right? Your doctors tell you, you got an infection. They give you this huge pill. You've got to take it every single day, twice a day. So why are we approaching this disease that is absolutely killing our future as if it's something we can wrap a Band-Aid around and just walk away? The Musketeer Association says no. You can donate. We need that. You can donate. We need the funding. But I make sure that all that funding that comes, that people have done, some donating, goes into the community in these projects. We have the Cotton Project, Know of Thy Neighbor. We're delivering groceries once a month to shut-ins, because that's what it is. We have the Flower Pot Project. We're saving up the money. I could lay the pot for my son like that. But will it help the rest of the neighborhood? No, it will not. And to convince me to do this is selfish if I do it. And do not consider the others. Because we are of one community, and what affects you affects me. So it's up to us to stand up on this truth and to say right now with our heart, stop the violence, stop the racism, stop the fascism. All of it is connected to that disease called trauma. He starts with you. And if you do not care about your neighbor, especially the children, and if you cannot forgive children, who can you forgive? Tell me. Please tell me who you can forgive. Who can you care about? We are not the future, gentlemen and ladies. Our children are. And the butterflies and bees. They indeed. They go to, they're the three connected to the humankind's advancement. Now, if you've given up on life, then there's something has traumatized you. because death is life. Birth is life. You're not just going to disappear.
Our guest this morning is Miss Rukiye, and we're talking about love, hope, and forgiveness. And I know there have been community gatherings and events and people gathering up mementos of the loved ones and having those taken to a museum to remember the loved ones. And then there have been many shows, there have been many art organizations, many articles written. You've been around the country speaking about this issue of showing love and not hate and trying to stop the violence. Cleopatra says, let's start at home first. We have broken young women having babies by broken young men, a vicious cycle, she says. She said we need trauma centers ran by people who can relate to our specific issues. People are talking about defunding police. So if you're going to defund police, not literally, I know they don't mean shut it down. Police, we have to have police departments. However, could we fund community centers where trauma can be treated for children? Can children in prisons be treated for this trauma that's being caused against them? Some ideas coming from you this morning. We'd like to hear from you. If you want to give us a call, 513-873-7134, or check in with us on Facebook. Be sure to like and share the show this morning. Comments to that, and why Three Musketeers? Why Three Musketeers Association?
Why the Musketeer? Not just, if you put the number, people limit themselves. So it's called the Musketeer Association. They come from all walks of life. We've got people from CEOs, from other companies, other organizations and companies. We have ditch diggers, and I mean literally ditch diggers, who are musketeers. They come from all walks of life with the idea to do projects that are perpetual and in that nature of antibiotic and probiotic. When I see paintings on walls and on streets, and people asking me once again to give an article of my son so that they can sit it into a museum, it does anger me. Now, I don't put that anger out as anger. It refocus. Not refocus. I continue to focus on the projects that we have, and I come up with other projects that I put on the table that it gets examined by the Musketeer board. And if it is in its same nature, where it has to be that which is ongoing, perpetual, in other words, and it is antibiotic and probiotic. So preventive methods taken, as well as what's already there, trying to cure the disease that may have affected them. So we come up with these projects, one of them for people who just simply say, stop VRF, stop the violence, stop the racism, stop the fascism. So we came up with a petition that we control. Did I have it upside down? I did. That we control. We control is on our site. And what we ask people to do simply is, with their own hearts, sign this petition. We send you a certificate. Believe it or not, that single certificate affects their psyche inside of themselves. And it's a beautiful certificate. And it's, you simply just signed it. We don't share your information with anyone. It stays in our database. We don't contact you after you have signed it, because all you're doing is saying you want this stopped. And it first starts with you and inside your family. We came up with another one, like I said, the Cotton Project. We do a show called Did You Know Show. And this Did You Know has us going about in our community, finding the real heroes. Who are the real heroes of our community? The people who have been traumatized and learned to rise and has risen above the trauma and started that healing process inside of them and doing good things in their community. And we have a lot of them that you don't know. The news channels don't show them. So we decided we would, once a week on Thursday, between the hours of 12 and 1:30, we do Did You Know Show live on Facebook. And we go about the community finding the people. Some of them started businesses, some of them have organizations going on, small organizations inside their homes. They're not getting any help from anyone. They just want to help these children. They want to stop this trauma. We know that the trauma is coming from people being stressed. It's coming from the financial situations that we have been locked into through a legislation, yes, through some of the people who are in our communities who have a say about what's going on with the banks. It's that financial situation is happening. Now, education. We're locked into a particular area for education. If you've got a poor community, a more challenged community, the public education in the school is less. But if you live out in a more affluent area, the education in the public schools is a lot higher. Why is that disparity? What's going on with that? So there are many, even in our jobs, that's happening. Even the type of businesses that come into our community in the more challenged areas, we have cash loans, which put us more. They're more like your what are they? Oh goodness! During the time which loan sharks. Sorry, I don't think of them that often, but the cash you check. Quick cash or whatever they call them, they're more like loan sharks, and they're very fluid, much in the challenged areas where people need money right away because they are living from paycheck to paycheck or from day to day. We have poorer type of marketing places where even you pay more for the groceries in that community than you do if you can get in a car and drive out to the more affluent areas where they have better shopping areas. There's all kinds of things that are done. Our strip malls are in your poor area, and they charge a lot more for even the renting of a place there. It's just amazing what they've done to, it's called serfdom, sorry. It is an old ancient serfdom.
Let me ask you this. What kind of reaction are you getting from our elected officials statewide, nationwide, citywide? City council race just happened, just elected a new mayor in the city. What kind of reaction have you received from them? And then I want to also welcome Anthony Prosser this morning. He says a good blessed morning. And then also Maxine says Ron Hammonds is doing an excellent job in his community, bringing awareness of trauma in the family to the community. So what kind of reaction are you getting from these people?
It's more like silence. Silence. I brought the Flower Pot Project to them, shown them exactly how it works, and it's beautifully put in. And with all kinds of things that can happen positive for our communities and stop this, and actually starting to eradicate the violence, decreasing it down and down and down to the point it would actually eradicate the violence that we have from pandemic levels. I have introduced to them the human values program. I went to the schools, introduced this to the board of education, and silence. It has been shocking to me. We have the one that's called the financial program. It's called ATI, Financial Literacy Program, which starts at the third grade level. Simple process that the children can't even count money now. They can't count money back to you. It does affect the mindset when you are not exercising the certain frontal lobes of how one analyzes and figures and comes up with actual true results. We have now, because there is a situation that is happening in the schools, we've come up with a program that actually will help the children know that when you do something good, you're rewarded. because they don't see that anymore. They get rewarded for doing terrible things because it goes on Snapchat and people start talking about it and they become famous because now you're paying attention to them. Understand what I said earlier? So now we have a program called the Young Heroism Peace Award. When a child doesn't fight back, saying, and they know they can hurt, but they don't fight back because they will not do this violence.
I know one case with our high school you were sharing with me, the girls who jumped on a boy and beat him up. I saw the video at Withrow. So what's happening with that?
Right now, we're about to do something that we are trying to keep it on the down low, as they say, for the young man to be rewarded for his heroism. In the meantime, we are working with the school to make sure that his safety is completely there. That's why he's back in school now. We did not want a repeat of an 8-year-old in 2017 leaving school, going home, and hanging himself. And he was bullied the day before. Sent back
I
to
know
school.
the case with Gabriel
And then he
Ty.
came back.
I mean, they paid
and
out
hung
like
himself
some $3 million to the
because they were
family.
still
The
bullied.
kid had been bullied at the school. Parents send him back to school, over and over again. Then he goes home, like you say, hung himself, killed himself, 8 years old. But the school says they were not responsible. But yet, it's,
Every
I don't get it. Who is responsible?
everyone connected to that child has a responsibility. There's not one person that wasn't. That child is the only one that wasn't responsible. When you deal with the trauma as it is, looking at it, and analyzing every part of it. So with this young man who's 13 years old, first and foremost, we took him out of school. Now, the Musketeer Association was called. It was one of the Musketeers who called us and said, "This is my grandson. I want your help." We went to the school the very next day as a group, and we addressed the issue right up front and with the child with us so he could see that someone cared about what's happening to him. That's the first step. First step. And as we did different processes that had to be followed by us, I don't know their policy. I know the steps that need to be done from the training that I bring to the table. And those steps had to be followed. Once we knew that that child was going to be safe, and only then with a letter from the school assuring that safety, then we took him back. But we took him back with his friends to greet him and the teachers to greet him first and foremost. The child has to feel secure. Otherwise, that trauma is going to start festering inside of them. And now what we're going to do...
Some parents are doing some things. The dads in Louisiana, the dads going into the schools, I think there were 23 students had been arrested, they said, in 3 days in that school in Louisiana. And the dads got together and decided they were going to go to the schools and patrol. And they said since September the 20th, there hasn't been a single incident on campus because those dads banded together. They musketeered together, not under your organization, but they came together. So some things can happen. These dads just empowered themselves and went to the schools. So I think when children see that adults and parents and dads and moms do care, maybe they'll react a little bit different, because I don't know, these kids, they stopped. Dad's on duty.
I can tell you that it is true. Because you come in showing that care and love for them, it's not going to be all the kids terrorizing each other. It's a group that does that, who themselves are being terrorized, I guarantee you. Now, one of the things that we want to make sure of the person who was victimized, one, is secure. We are concerned about the others who are doing the victimization, but we are not given privilege to them yet. However, we are waiting to find out, because we don't want them thrown. The parents have already told they don't want them in jail. They want them getting help. And this has been going on in the school. So it's going to take both sides of the street and making sure that this doesn't continue. And I commend dads. Let's not throw the rest of the children away because they actually count. They count too because they're in that trauma. They've got that disease. We can't keep putting people in 2020, these kids in there. They're not getting the rehabilitation they need to get. They know they're not. And then when they have done whatever time they're supposed to be doing, then they let them back on the street. If the family's households are still the same as what they were when they got in there, how then are they going to be able to improve? All of this takes one for all and all for one, and all of us standing up. This disease doesn't care who you are or your money. Suicide is 4 times that of all homicides, suicide, yet we do not have the conversation. And I'm talking about from 8 years old to 30, is in that realm that suicide has fallen to 4 times that. So that means children who come out with those 5 things, everyone, don't forget them. Every child is born with them, is being traumatized to the point that suicide is the answer, even if they have to take you with them. That's wrong.
Says she completely agrees with you. Young people, she says, who make a concerted effort not to have children before they're financially able or married, get nothing from society, taxes, incentives, etc. Nothing happens to them. Maxine says exactly. Miss Abdul stresses and she says she knows that depression is another issue that is on minds and hearts of parents too. Let's look
Yes.
at this whole thing with guns. I don't know, the 14-year-old that shot your son, they had access to a gun. What about people supporting those who shoot? A trial going on now in Kenosha, Wisconsin for Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old who lived in Illinois, but he decided to go back from Kenosha, Wisconsin to his home in Illinois, bought back a long gun, and then he shot into the crowd when there was a protest one night. This 17-year-old shot and killed 2 people and injured another person. Now he's on trial. And so the question they're asking about him, was he, in fact, was he protecting himself or was he a victim?
Now, understand this. When we choose the gun as the focus instead of the trauma, have we solved the problem? No. England has a strict, strong no guns law. You know what they're using now? Knives. They push people in front of trains. Vehicle homicide is high. Matter of fact, trains are really high because they're standing on a platform and they push them. It is the disease. It is the trauma. And if we don't start actually addressing it. So am I a supporter of guns or not of guns? That's not my forte, what I am focusing on, aiming, what the Musketeers aim. Because if you kill the people, guns will never be the first thing they think of, period. They won't, nor knife, nor chokings. We have drownings. They are drowning the babies, drowning them. And because they're only focusing on guns, you don't hear about the drownings, you don't hear about the pillow smothering, you don't hear about the chokings, beatings, you hardly hear about any of that. I ask people the question, and I'm going to ask your audience, and you're probably going to get angry with me. And you know what? They've been angry with me ever since I started talking this truth. What happens to those guns when they buy them back? Where do those guns go? I know the answer. Would you like it? Yes? Okay. Well, I can tell you, they don't melt them down and turn them into spoons. They don't melt them down at all. What happens when they confiscate cars from drug dealers, houses? They have what's called, what? Auctions. You can buy those guns back, and they do not have any type of any type of warning. You can go to gun shows, the very guns that they bought. Where does the police get extra money from? It's all a part that goes to them. It doesn't come to the community. That money that they gave or they got from the auction, where community? Can someone tell me? Yeah, I know. I'm probably going to be in, my musketeers are probably saying, Rukiye, be quiet. But ladies, gentlemen, my hearts, my family, all of you are connected to me as I am to you. Why haven't you asked this question? Because I asked this question. I got my answer. Other people won't even tell you that no, they'll walk away from you. Well, you're not, that's an answer to me. You know. The answer is not the weapon. It's the disease. When are we going to wrap ourselves around it? If we bring our hearts back to center balance, you will start voting and you will vote out the people who hold on to these legislative laws that are wrongful. Period. That's how it works.
Queen Maxine says she got cut off. I'm not sure if you were on the call-in line or if what happened to you, but if you were on the call-in line, maybe you want to call back at 513-873-7134 for Maxine. Casey Brown says right back on the streets is where the guns go. I agree with you on that. Cleopatra said they go back into the community. Someone says Kyle Rittenhouse, that 17-year-old with the long gun, came back with his gun with intent to kill somebody. Who was he protecting himself? That was a question I asked. But teen violence goes on every day. Injustice checking in saying that stop the violence, stop the bullying. I agree with that. And some parents know what's happening. Dads on patrol in the communities. I think that's an answer. One of the answers that are out there that keeps people involved. But on any given day, news stories about violence, about bullying continues to go on. You have a caravan, you go around the community, and I'm wondering, is your help wanted? Is your help I know it's needed, but are people accepting your help? Community organizations.
I can tell you the people in the community are welcoming it because they are getting to speak. And in our Caravan of Survivors Speaking Out that's traveling, we engage the audience. We have them ask, we have a panel of people that they know and some they don't know. They come from other communities, but they are just like you and me who have been affected by trauma. And the audience gets to ask them questions. When we did our Caravan of Survivors Speaking Out October 17th, the people didn't want to go home. We would hold 2 hours. We introduced it with a play on domestic violence. We then had the panels telling their stories, and the audience then got a chance to ask questions. And many of them engaged in these questions, and they didn't want to go home. They love the answers. We also sent them home with a questionnaire that they could ask themselves to see, are they dealing with trauma themselves? Because no one's really willing to go to a professional right away and say, hey, I've been traumatized. Number one, most of your private traumatized entities, they charge. We're talking challenge people. So yes, we do need trauma services in the community. We do need it. But we also need people being able to ask the questions of people who are rising above that trauma, because those are your real heroes. So the caravan came into existence so that we could get the community engaging and asking. And yes, they want it. Now, are the officials going crazy for it? No, not at all. And you have to ask yourself, why? Follow the money. What do you want me to tell you? Something you already know? I know this. Follow the money. Now it's up to you. For me, like I said, I got tired of asking them. And I certainly wasn't going to continue going down the same path they're doing the same thing for the last 45 to 50 years, the same thing, expecting different results. That is insane. I have no skin in this game, everyone. My children are well, alhamdulillah. Even the one who has gone to his grave, as far as I'm concerned, he's well. He's not being harmed by this world any longer. My oldest son is a commander in the Navy, harming no one. He works in the IT part of it. And he actually is taking training and giving training about trauma himself, helping the soldiers to not be so traumatized. My daughter is an IT guru, flies around the country until COVID. But she works with different entities, trying to help even in the company she works for about trauma. Because stress, IT people are stressed. Ask any of them, they get stressed. And it's like they need an outlet too, so they don't take that home. And what I've found with many IT people is that they are not people friendly. They like working with computers. To deal with other human beings is stressful. So I don't have any skin. What I'm trying to tell you is I could walk away. I could take what funding I have. It's mine. I earned it. I worked hard all my life. And I've given my children all their inheritance, so I owe no one nothing. No one. But,
let me get a couple other comments in. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Sob One says, great conversation this morning. Queen Maxine says she's a product of trauma until the Most High starts showing her how to deal with my family dynamics. Until Cleopatra, great show, she says. QT, until we deal with that music, all of this falls on deaf ears, DEAF. QT says Fetty Wap was sending 100 keys of fentanyl and 100 ARs of 15s, AR-15s from West Coast to East Coast. So some of the singers and drug are dealing drugs as well. We know that. Nakia says that is so very true. It is very stressful, very stressful. And then Janet says our people have been traumatized for so long that it has been the norm and they are totally unaware. We got to keep on working and waking people up, Rukiye. When is your next caravan? What's going on with you next?
Next caravan is on November 21st. We're going to be doing it online, and it is on suicide, a conversation we need to have. And it's only going from the age 8 to 30. I don't want to address at this time any mental. That has always been small in our community. With suicide for children, that has outstretched above the mental. And they wanted to try to throw it as a mental situation with the children, but then you can't ignore the 5 innate things they're born with. So you can't say it's mental for them. You then have to look at it. So November 21st, and we'll be putting it on our website, www.themusketeerassociation.net, on our Facebook page, which we have 3 of them, and we will be putting it on there. But especially go to the Musketeer Association's Facebook page, like the page, increase our numbers. You know what happens when the numbers increase. Don't pretend you don't know. Don't say you can't do anything. Because if you increase our numbers, number of followers, the number of people joining the Musketeers, guess where the money's going to come? They put the money where they can get something from it, whether it's advertising, whether it is getting more money from the federal government because they are supporting now this entity, this association. People, you have more of the power that was granted to you by the Creator because He created you as human beings to care. Now it's up to you. I am doing my part. I will go to my grave doing this part because the 3 B's is another innate law. Babies, butterflies, and bees. Without them, mankind has no future. So everywhere I can, hit that disease, infect it with the vaccine, which is true forgiveness, true mercy, and doing good. I know I can win this battle. and we can win this war. It's up to you. Don't say you can't do anything. And one thing I remind all of our followers, prayer is the most powerful tool on earth. It will move mountains, but you have to be sincere in your prayer. So pray. Pray for the Musketeer Association. You've given me a mountain of gold if you do that.
This morning has truly been blessed to be here. We've been blessed to have you here. You've forgiven the people who shot and killed your son, but you can't forgive our leaders for not being out there and trying to stop more people from being harmed. Yolanda, thank you for checking in this morning. She says, amen, as we close out the show. You're on point. Janice Robertson says, we appreciate everyone. Until the Lord says so, we will be back. We will continue to keep our message out there. And Rukiye, I will let you get the last word in just a second here. Thank you all for joining us on this Straight Talk Live this Sunday morning. Rukiye, your parting word.
The Musketeer Pledge. And every Musketeer is memorizing it as I speak today. And it is, I pledge to stand forth as a constant reminder to myself and others to bring light, beauty, and truth. To unify, honor, and ignite a beacon of hope and goodwill in our neighborhoods, our communities, our cities, and our nation. Wherever there is despair, hopelessness, oppression, fear, injustice, or humiliation, I will be that lighthouse, directing all towards safety and justice until all acts of tyranny reign no more, not even for one of us. One for all and all for one. That was a cry from our ancestors long ago. We're bringing it back.
Alexander Dumas. Thank you all for listening. Our guest has been Rukiye Abdul-Mutakallim, and we thank you so much from the Musketeers Association, Flower Pots, and a phone number if people would like to get in touch with you or your organization.
Phone number is 937-304-8854. Text or call. Our website, www.themusketeerassociation.org.net.com. We bought it all. And you can follow us on Facebook, The Musketeer Association. And go in there and like the page, share it with all the others, tell them to like the page. We're not getting any money from anyone except the people who have now opened their hearts and understand it's going to take us.
Thank you all for joining us. If you learned something, then my mission has been accomplished. I'm yours truly, Edna Howell Parrish on Straight Talk Live.